Hollywood, a place where dreams are said to be manufactured and lives transformed into overnight successes. But what if, behind the glittering facade, lies a system with a hidden, steeper price for fame, a price that can sometimes demand one's very soul? What you are about to hear delves deep into the shadowy side, through the personal experiences of Mel Gibson, one of cinema's most respected and, at times, controversial figures. In a candid interview, he reportedly revealed encounters and insights that hint at a spiritual battleground unseen by most, a reality that nearly cost him everything. This isn't just about the pressures of stardom. It's about a truth Mel Gibson felt compelled to share, a truth that might shake the foundations of what many believe about the spiritual landscape of influence and power. Stay with us, because the journey we're embarking on, through Gibson's own words and experiences, may illuminate the hidden cost of conviction in a world often hostile to faith. Mel Gibson's story begins far from the dazzling lights of Hollywood, in Peekskill, New York. Born on January 3, 1956. He was the sixth of 11 children to Hutton Gibson, a World War II veteran and writer known for his strong, sometimes controversial, religious views, and in Patricia Riley, a talented Australian opera singer. His upbringing was unconventional. At the age of 12, his family moved from the United States to Sydney, Australia, partly due to his father's concerns about the Vietnam War and a desire to shield his sons from the draft, and also to find society more aligned with their conservative religious beliefs. This early move and the strong faith environment of his family would profoundly shape Gibson's life and future decisions, instilling in him a deep-seated conviction that would later be both his strength and, in the eyes of some, a source of conflict. As a small thank you for joining us today, we offer a moment of shared blessing. Comment with the word faith, if you're open to receiving a special closing thought dedicated to all who participate. And please tap like if you appreciate these moments. In Sydney, Gibson honed his acting skills at the prestigious National Institute of Dramatic Art, alongside future stars like Geoffrey Rush and Judy Davis. His rare talent was evident early on. The silver screen soon beckoned, and his breakout role came in 1979 with Mad Max, a low-budget dystopian film that became an international phenomenon, launching Gibson onto the global stage. Interestingly, he reportedly landed the role partly because he showed up to the audition with a bruised face from a bar fight, a broken look that appealed to the director. Success followed with films like Gallipoli and the Lethal Weapon franchise, which solidified his status as a major action star. Yet, despite this worldly success, a deeper yearning stirred within him, a desire for more significant, meaningful work. Be sure to stay with us, as around Chapter 4, we will delve into a specific, chilling encounter Mel Gibson described involving another famous actor and disturbing symbols, an event he claims marked the beginning of intense spiritual and professional battles. What did he witness, and how did it impact his path? Mel Gibson's talent, evident from his early days, quickly propelled him from Australian theater stages to international film sets. After the unexpected success of Mad Max, there was no turning back. He rapidly became a sought-after star, proving his versatility in films like the poignant war drama Gallipoli, 1981, and most notably the action-packed Lethal Weapon series, which began in 1987. His portrayal of the charismatic but troubled police officer Martin Riggs, alongside Danny Glover, cemented his status as one of the biggest action heroes of the 80s and 90s, a household name synonymous with box office success. The world saw a star at the peak of his powers, celebrated for his on-screen magnetism and rugged appeal. Yet, amidst the blockbuster successes and global fame, the transcription suggests Mel Gibson felt a stirring for something more, a desire for work that resonated on a deeper, more significant level than even his most popular roles offered. This artistic yearning led him to take a monumental risk in 1995 when he directed and starred in Braveheart. This epic historical drama, recounting the story of legendary Scottish hero William Wallace and his fight for freedom, was a triumph in every sense. The film captivated audiences and critics alike, earning 5 Academy Awards, including the coveted Best Picture and Best Director Oscars for Gibson himself. Braveheart was a watershed moment. It proved that Gibson was not just a bankable movie star, but a formidable filmmaker capable of creating works of great historical relevance, emotional depth, and cultural impact. He had reached the pinnacle of Hollywood achievement. However, It was around this period of immense success that, as the transcription notes, something began to shift in Mel Gibson's life. After reaching the zenith of fame, with Hollywood seemingly at his feet, his personal life started to show signs of turbulence, leading to a series of public controversies that threatened to overshadow his accomplishments. There were complicated episodes involving alcohol, statements that drew sharp criticism, and personal conflicts that played out under the harsh glare of the media spotlight, nearly derailing his celebrated career. The transcription points out, with a note of intrigue, that while Gibson faced intense public scrutiny and cancellation for his actions, other celebrities involved in similar or arguably worse scandals seemed to weather their storms with far less damage to their careers, remaining largely untouchable by comparison. This disparity in treatment raises questions and hints at complexities beyond simple tabloid fodder. What was truly happening behind the scenes as Gibson navigated these personal and public trials? The disparity in how Mel Gibson's personal struggles were amplified by the media, compared to other celebrities facing similar issues, indeed raises questions, as the transcription highlights. But the narrative suggests that a specific, deeply unsettling experience may have marked a turning point, perhaps intensifying the spiritual and public battles that lay ahead for Gibson. This event reportedly occurred in 1998, during an interview or meeting with the acclaimed actor Christopher Walken in a New York hotel. It was an encounter that Gibson would later recount, an experience he found profoundly disturbing and spiritually charged. According to Gibson's account, as he entered the hotel, he was immediately struck by an illuminated neon sign on a nearby building displaying the numbers 666 in blazing red, a symbol laden with dark spiritual connotations for those familiar with Christian eschatology. This ominous sight set a disquieting tone for the meeting. Gibson described Walken, upon noticing his reaction to the sign, offering a strange, almost mocking smile, adding to the growing sense of unease. The atmosphere, he felt, was thick with a palpable spiritual tension. The conversation took an even more bizarre turn when, as Gibson recalled, it shifted to the topic of medieval torture, seemingly initiated by Walken, who had been reading a book on the subject. They discussed horrific details, and Gibson described an oppressive coldness filling the air, a spiritual chill so intense that his assistant, unable to bear it any longer, had to leave the room. Gibson himself felt an overwhelming urge to depart, sensing that the situation was becoming spiritually menacing. This reported encounter, marked by unsettling symbols and a disturbing focus on suffering, seems to have deeply affected Gibson, perhaps serving as a stark personal experience of the spiritual darkness he believed was active in the world. Could this chilling meeting have been a foreshadowing or an instigating factor in the intense spiritual warfare and public persecution he felt he endured in the years to come, especially as he moved towards creating the Passion of Christ? The unsettling encounter in the New York hotel, with its disturbing symbols and oppressive atmosphere, reportedly marked the beginning of what Mel Gibson perceived as a true spiritual war in his life. When he chose to speak publicly about this experience, including the chilling details of the conversation with Christopher Walken and the 666 sign, the transcription suggests it unleashed a devastating impact on his life and career. From that point forward, everything seemed to become a battle, a struggle that extended far beyond typical Hollywood pressures into something that felt like targeted opposition. This framing of events, as Gibson potentially wrestling with unseen forces, adds a dramatic layer to his well-documented public trials. The media attacks against him, particularly following personal missteps like his arrest for driving under the influence, were described by the source as disproportionately fierce compared to how other celebrities with similar or even more severe scandals were treated. While any such failing deserves scrutiny, the level of sustained negative coverage and public cancellation Gibson experienced seemed, to some observers and according to this narrative, almost orchestrated. Magazines, newspapers, and TV channels appeared relentless in highlighting every misstep, often with a fervor that overshadowed any attempt at redemption or nuanced understanding. This intense focus led many to question if there was more at play than just the price of fame. If the courage to stand for one's convictions even in the face of overwhelming opposition speaks to your spirit, feel free to share amen in the comments below. Interestingly, countering this dominant negative narrative were voices of those who knew Gibson personally. Figures like Whoopi Goldberg publicly defended him, attesting to his character as cordial, respectful, and a good friend behind the scenes. This created a stark discrepancy between the public image being aggressively promoted by much of the media and the private testimonies of colleagues. The transcription strongly implies that Mel Gibson had crossed an invisible line in Hollywood, not just by his personal failings, but by daring to speak openly about his spirituality and, perhaps more provocatively, by exposing or alluding to a darker, spiritually unsettling side of the entertainment industry and some of its powerful figures. His explicit mention of the 666 symbol in connection with a prominent actor was not a casual detail. It was perceived, according to this account, as a direct challenge that put Hollywood on high alert. Was this the beginning of a deliberate effort to silence him? What does history tell us about those who challenge established powers? The narrative presented in the transcription suggests that Mel Gibson's outspokenness about his faith, and particularly his unsettling encounter involving Christopher Walken and ominous symbols, may have been perceived as a direct challenge to certain undercurrents within Hollywood. The transcription notes Christopher Walken's reported silence on the matter, which it finds intriguing given his influence in the industry. Mel Gibson, with his steadfast Christian convictions, stood in contrast to what was portrayed as a Hollywood elite, perhaps more comfortable with spirituality kept private, or at least not expressed in ways that might expose or question deeper, more unsettling spiritual dynamics. Could it be that Gibson, in his candidness, inadvertently touched upon truths that powerful figures prefer to remain unspoken? The transcription draws a parallel between the characteristics often associated with spiritual opposition in Scripture, charisma, influence, and deception, and what Gibson may have felt he encountered. It posits that Gibson became convinced he had witnessed a manifestation of significant spiritual darkness, akin to the very forces the Bible warns against. This conviction was reportedly shared by his personal assistant, who was present during the encounter and described feeling such an overwhelming spiritual oppression that he had to leave the room immediately, later calling it the worst spiritual experience of his life. This shared testimony underscores the intensity of the moment, suggesting it was far more than a mere uncomfortable meeting. Following Gibson's public recounting of this experience, the transcription alleges that a more concerted effort to discredit him began, spearheaded by influential figures within Hollywood, producers and executives controlling media narratives and major film productions. The narrative suggests his name began to mysteriously fade from lists of desired actors for major projects, implying a punishment that went beyond public backlash for personal scandals. It hinted at an orchestrated move to silence and sideline him. The assertion is that Gibson was targeted not just for common celebrity missteps, but because he dared to speak about his faith in a challenging way, and perhaps because he was perceived as exposing uncomfortable truths about spiritual influences within the industry. It's a narrative of a man whose faith put him on a collision course with powerful, hidden forces. How did Mel Gibson respond to this immense pressure and apparent blacklisting? What powerful statement would he make to the world? Faced with what the transcription portrays as an orchestrated campaign to silence and discredit him within Hollywood, Mel Gibson's response was not to retreat, but to embark on the most audacious and spiritually charged project of his career. His answer to those who doubted him, to the media scrutiny, and to the spiritual opposition he perceived, came in 2004 with the release of The Passion of the Christ. This wasn't just another film. It was a deeply personal mission, one he was willing to risk everything for. He invested heavily from his own pocket, reportedly over $30 million, with no guarantee of financial return, especially after major studios refused to distribute what they deemed a controversial and unmarketable film. Gibson's vision for the film was uncompromising. It would narrate the last 12 hours of Jesus Christ's life with visceral realism, spoken entirely in Aramaic and Latin, a decision that shocked many in Hollywood who prioritized commercial appeal above all else. When studio after studio rejected the project, citing its controversial nature and lack of mainstream appeal, Gibson, with unwavering determination, decided to release it independently through New Market Films. It was an immense gamble, but one he felt called to make, and the outcome was astonishing. The Passion of the Christ defied all industry predictions, resonating powerfully with audiences worldwide and earning over $600 million, becoming one of the most successful independent films in history. If the story of Mel Gibson's courage and conviction in bringing such a monumental testimony of faith to the screen inspires you, supporting us with a like and subscribing to the channel allows us to continue sharing these powerful narratives. The making of the film itself was reportedly fraught with extraordinary, almost supernatural occurrences, adding to the sense that this was more than just a movie production. Jim Caviezel, who portrayed Jesus, was struck by lightning during the filming of the crucifixion scene. Incredibly, Jan Michelini, an assistant director, was also struck by lightning on 2 separate occasions during the shoot. Those present on set described an atmosphere thick with spiritual intensity, a sense that they were witnessing or participating in something beyond the natural realm. For many involved, these events were perceived as signs of intense spiritual battles surrounding a film that dared to portray the suffering and redemptive power of Christ with such raw honesty. Mel Gibson himself never hid the fact that the Passion of Christ was, for him, a profoundly spiritual undertaking, far more than a cinematic endeavor. What was the ultimate impact of this film, born from such conviction and surrounded by such extraordinary circumstances? The impact of Mel Gibson's The Passion of the Christ was undeniable and far-reaching. Millions of lives were touched. People who may not have known Jesus or who had strayed from faith emerged from cinemas weeping, transformed, and broken in the best sense, open to the power of his truth. The cinematic pilgrimage, born from Gibson's personal conviction and spiritual journey, achieved what many thought impossible. It brought a raw, unflinching depiction of Christ's suffering and love to a global audience, sparking countless conversations and, for many, profound spiritual awakenings. The public reaction confirmed that Gibson's spiritual undertaking, his passion project, was indeed much more than just a film. It was a spiritual event that resonated deeply across the world. The intense challenges and personal attacks Mel Gibson faced, as detailed in the transcription, are framed not merely as consequences of controversial filmmaking or personal missteps, but as a form of spiritual retaliation. The narrative suggests that by daring to challenge Hollywood's status quo and produce such a profoundly Christian film, one that didn't shy away from spiritual realities, Gibson invited opposition from forces both seen and unseen. This perspective is reinforced by recent reports from Jim Caviezel, who confirmed that the upcoming sequel, The Passion of the Christ, Resurrection, is already facing numerous spiritual attacks during its production, indicating that the spiritual battle surrounding this sacred story continues. It suggests that what Mel Gibson experienced was part of a larger, ongoing struggle when themes of divine truth and redemption are brought so powerfully into the public square. Mel Gibson could have chosen a quieter path, conformed to industry expectations, and avoided the immense personal and professional cost. But he chose truth, he chose faith, and he chose to fight for a story he believed the world desperately needed to see. His journey, marked by immense success, profound personal struggles, and an unwavering commitment to his vision for the Passion, serves as a powerful reminder that the path of faith is often narrow, challenging, and requires deep courage. It's a call to all believers to stand firm, to recognize that true victory lies not in worldly acceptance, but in faithfulness to God, even when everything seems to be crumbling. Perhaps today, as the transcription urges, is the day God has chosen to remind you that you are not alone, that His plans for your life, and that He believes in you, even when the world doubts. As we reflect on Mel Gibson's journey and the enduring message of Christ's sacrifice and victory, we invite you to affirm your faith. Comment Jesus is the King below, and your journey doesn't have to end here. Click the video now appearing on your screen for another powerful message we prepared for you.